have questions and topics to cover concerning technology in the music classroom. If you have questions for either of the panelists, please type them into the GoToMeeting questions box, and we will address as many as we can at the end. Let's meet our panelists. We have Sue Snyder, an author on the Spotlight on Music General Music Curriculum, former teacher and founder and president of Arts Education Ideas, Inventive Designs for Education and the Arts, LLC, a company devoted to excellence and innovation in education. Welcome, Sue.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
And joining Sue, we have Michael Hudson. He is our senior curriculum expert here at McGraw-Hill Education and also a former teacher and choir director. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you, Zach. Good afternoon, everyone.
And I am Zach. I'm the Associate Product Marketing Manager here at McGraw-Hill Education, and I'll be moderating the discussion. So welcome to both of you, and let's get started. So here are the three topics that we're going to cover over the next hour. Based on feedback we've been collecting from customers, both in person and in online forums, we've chosen to focus today's discussion on these 3 points because we feel like they're especially salient considering where music curriculums are headed in terms of technology. Before we jump into the first topic that we want to look at, let's build some context. Sue, do you have anything you want to add about this?
Well, I think as I was thinking about this whole topic, I had some thoughts about technology and music education from my perspective, which is an author's perspective. First, the digital landscape is as old as learning tools and as new as tomorrow. There's always something new that we can embrace, and that's wonderful, but it also can be a concern because you always have people who get nervous about anything new, and you have folks who grab a hold of anything that's new just for the sake of it being new without thinking about how they're going to use it or whether it's going to be effective. Everyone who's on the webinar has a music curriculum, and McGraw-Hill Education has a music scope and sequence. We cover essential concepts and skills by grade level, and it tells us what students should know and be able to do in music and also through music. The materials and activities then in the product are used to deliver the concepts and skills in the curriculum. The materials and activities are not the curriculum by themselves. When we write a textbook series, we address a range of needs, and there's more stuff in the product than any one teacher can use or wants to use, especially for music educators with limited instructional time. So yes, we address a range of needs because it's a national product, but we also work very hard to make the threads easy to find and follow. So if we have a Kodai teacher, that they're able to find their reading sequence all the way through, and that the ORF instrument accompaniments are supporting the concepts and skills that are being taught, and the movement supports it. What happens with the digital platform that's so exciting for me is that it makes the sorting so much easier and clearer for the teachers. It's just one of the many, many advantages of a digital platform. So before we started talking about the digital landscape, I think that we just want to think about the fact that we're still teaching music concepts and skills using materials and activities that are quality materials and activities.
You know, I heard some interesting things in there, and one thing that I've been hearing from music educators recently is that 21st century skills is becoming a bigger deal in the classroom. Teachers are being asked to demonstrate that they are having their students engage with technology, and then that is enhancing their learning somehow. Is that something that both of you are hearing from teachers?
Absolutely. I mean, that is so crucial in terms of not only meeting the needs of the music classroom, but also there are technology skills and requirements that districts are making those teachers adhere to. So I think in this whole platform and this whole idea of 21st century style learning, we address those issues and utilize all these fantastic resources and digital tools to accommodate those teaching ideas and methodologies and all of their pedagogies that they utilize within their classrooms.
Right.
I would concur, and then I would just add that it's different in every school district. The demands are different depending on your school district and depending on the amount of technology that is available. So sometimes teachers are asked to do things and then don't have the resources that they need. Sometimes they have lots of resources and they don't know how to use them. But everybody's coming along. It's a temporary situation because everyone is getting there.
Right. Michael, the next slide that we have actually demonstrates sort of what we've done with Spotlight on Music. Do you want to speak to this a little bit?
Sure, absolutely. Well, we at McGraw-Hill, we've had a long history of providing quality music programs with well-known authors such as Sue, and creating content that music educators can utilize and trust to use. And we're continuing sort of in that tradition, but now we offer far more flexibility than ever before with this sort of 21st century delivery system. And it's called Music Studio. And as you're seeing here, we've really taken and reimagined content, offering a full pre-K to 12 curricular solution. And Spotlight on Music is the pre-K 8 version. The 912 or high school general music course is Music, Its Role and Importance in Our Lives. And then our brand new Voices in Concert 612 choral repertoire curriculum and sight singing program are the ways that we're reinventing and reimagining how music instruction is used in a classroom setting through interactive songs. As you see down at the bottom there, some of the digital assets that you'll have right at your fingertips. Listening selections, interactive listening maps with gaming, interactive songs as a teaching tool. And the beauty of digital, I think, is the fact that it grows with your curriculum, not only in terms of content, but in terms of delivery of that content. So I think with this reimagination of these really, really strong curriculums, music teachers are going to be able to access things immediately, and through a streaming audio and video approach, it really, really allows that access not only to the teacher, but as we'll talk about later, and you'll see, delivery of information and access to this content outside of the classroom for that music student, which has never been done before. So this whole reimagining of content is going to be a valuable tool that I think teachers will be hesitant maybe at first to use, but I think once they start using it, they'll see and realize that how did they ever live without having this?
Right. I hear what you're saying. I've spoken to a lot of teachers who are very excited that their students can now access materials outside of the classroom.
Absolutely.
So I think that was great for building context. I think one of the things that stood out for me from those comments was when Sue said that, every classroom is going to look a little bit different in terms of how they're set up for technology and what the expectations are. So that's why I think it's so great that you both are willing to take a little time today to share some of your experiences and what you think is going to start happening in music classrooms. So in terms of integrating technology, that phrase is probably going to mean something different to each and every teacher. So one way to start building a more comprehensive understanding of what this actually means in practice is probably to share a little of what has been observed in classrooms recently. So the question is, what are some of the creative ways you are seeing technology and active music making come together in the classroom?
Well, let me start by saying I think there are essentially, at least with Music Studio, three basic experiences that the teacher and the student will encounter. The first really being sort of that digital classroom experience, you know, where you as the teacher are in front of your students presenting your music lessons, but now rather than you know, using a teacher edition and, you know, the old school way of if you had a DVD or if you had you know, a piano in front of you, whatever the case may be. Now you're presenting by, you know, essentially projecting songs and other resources, whether it be, you know, via a smartboard or interactive whiteboard or a monitor and screen, whatever the case may be. But you're able to move forward through your lessons that you're able to customize and present these in that same sort of setting, but just in sort of this digital classroom experience. The second way I think that this is utilized is within the digital student experience, both inside the classroom and outside of the classroom, because the students will be able to log into an account and they will have access, as I said before, to all of those music studio assets during class or at home. So, you know, they can practice their part or rehearse something that they've learned in class or just sort of adventure through different things. And then the fourth, obviously, is that digital teacher experience. And that really is you as the teacher taking all of this content, all of these digital assets, and customizing them in such a way that makes your lesson planning a breeze, because you can quickly access the content, determine and search for those pieces that you want to incorporate in that particular lesson, whether it be within that grade level or cross grade levels. So you can, I think also is what's really, really cool about this is that you don't have to carry home all of those print materials, all of those different resources, you know, to do all of your teacher planning and your lesson planning, because now it's all accessed via the web, via a web browser. So I think that form or those three experiences really make this music studio curriculum so strong and such a great platform for delivering those different experiences.
Right.
Yeah.
And you, go ahead, Sue.
This is so. Let's hold on to those three types of experiences for a minute. But I want to go back to the question first and talk about active music making, because this is a term that was coined by a group of music educators from Orff, Kodai, Dalcroze, Gordon, who all got together and said, we really need not to work against each other. We need to work with each other. We all have similar goals, and we in collaborating, we all do active music making in one way or another. And active music making means that the teacher is guiding and the students are actively involved in creating, performing, responding, and connecting information. So it's hands-on and brains-on through singing, playing, moving, composing, improvising, listening, reading, all of those things, writing, thinking, in, about, and through music. So Orff and Kodai, Dalcroze, Gordon Music Learning Theory are examples of approaches that promote active music making. I know we're talking about technology, but I think we have to go back and say that's what we value. We want our kids to be really, really actively engaged and involved. And when we use technology, we want the teacher to use technology to facilitate active music making. The technology then puts the materials and activities all in one place at the teacher's fingertips. And now if we talk about the three experiences that Michael discussed, Zach, do you think we could see, are they on this slide somehow? Is there more on this slide?
Yes, there is more on this.
There we go.
There we go.
So Michael talked about teaching in the classroom, the digital student experience, and the teacher planning experience. Technology and active music making come together during these three kinds of experiences. So when the teacher is in front of the classroom and we have a whole group experience, there are things like interactive listening maps, and I'm so excited about these. I had a team who were responsible for creating them, and we just had to totally reimagine listening maps and how not only they were animated, but that then you can, by touching the screen, you can hear different things, you can manipulate things, you can move things around. It's so exciting. And even when there's a song on the screen in the front of the room and the kids are listening to it, there's a cursor that moves along. You don't have to have it, but if you want kids' eyes to move along with the song, it really helps to guide them until they are comfortable and confident reading music. So there's so many wonderful tools that are part of the digital experience.
And Sue, can I just sort of piggyback on that too?
Sure.
I think it's important, we all live, and mostly our students or our children live in this visually stimulating world, whether it be via computers or video games or, MTV or music videos, etc. They are visual learners, and they live in this visual way of listening to things. So that visual approach to those interactive listening maps, that visual approach to those iSongs or those tracking of those songs is the way that they sort of watch things. And then they also feature gaming ideas. So that's another huge important piece of the puzzle that they learn through playing games. And we've always played games, so to speak, in our music classes, but now we've got this sort of 21st century way of playing those games and really connecting them directly to whatever musical skill or concept that we're teaching for the kids that day. And I think that's really, really important that we as music teachers are taking that visual experience and recognizing it, and then, turning it into that aural experience, or turning it into that vocal experience or that playing experience, and taking them where they're at, what they're used to, and making it come to life as music lives through them.
Yeah, and I would even add, that teachers have been asked for a long time to contribute to the literacy of children in terms of reading words, and there's text on the screen as well, so that the kids are reading text as well. It's a very, very rich environment, and you have everything right there. So if you need an art print or you need something that provides context, you can pull it right up. It is right there. It's really exciting.
It is very exciting.
Yeah. Okay, so go ahead.
Go ahead.
The second way that we talked about is the digital student experience. So we're going to talk a little bit more about this in a minute with a flipped classroom, but this is the first time that students are actually able to take their music book home with them, because in the past, a teacher would have one set of 6th grade books and how many 6th grade classes, and so the kids couldn't take the books home with them. And now every student can have the materials and the text at home, and so there's a lot of opportunity for students to play. Even within the classroom, there are opportunities to play virtual instruments, practice before you go to the real instrument, all kinds of things that students can do that get them more engaged and more involved in music making. So we want to build independent learners, and we want teachers to create those kind of situations for their students. And then the teacher planning experience, I think we have teachers who are really, really excited about. They might be scared of it a little bit, but mostly teachers are really excited about this digital platform. The teachers that I've worked with really are ready to embrace it and to learn it. They need time to learn how to plan their lessons using it because it gives them so much flexibility, and they need professional development. One of the things that I've learned, I've been creating an online program for the past 2 years, and one of the really, really important things is that orientation and support of teachers as they plan, especially during their first year, is absolutely critical. And so the teachers will be able to get together, work on things together, but also get some support from McGraw-Hill as they're learning how to use this extraordinary tool. They'll have everything at their fingertips. It's quite amazing.
So do you have any specific advice for teachers beginning to integrate technology into their classrooms?
I do. It's been, uh, as I said, I've been developing an online program for, actually, we have a research project that's been going on for 8 years. And the first thing is not a technology thing or a digital thing. You have to know what your goal or objective is first. So before going to the digital product, the teacher needs to look at the scope and sequence and say, okay, where are my kids and what is the next thing for them? Where do I want to go with this? Then, if you're just learning how to use a digital product or use technology, use one thing in each lesson. Don't try to teach a whole lesson using technology, or you will be standing up in front of the classroom. You'll be using the technology, and the kids will be watching and listening to you, and that's no different than you standing up in the front of the classroom without technology.
Right.
You need to practice first and add your own skills slowly. So it's pretty fast learning how to use the digital product, but you still need to practice it before you use it with students. That's true of anything that you would teach in music or anything else. Make your professional development a time to explore and gain skills. So that means messing around, getting your hands into the mucky muck of the program and playing with it. And then make sure that you're still teaching music. You can get so involved in the technology and playing with the technology that the technology becomes the curriculum. And really, technology is only a tool. So make sure that you do a check every once in a while that you're still delivering your curriculum, your music curriculum. And your students can help you. That's great. But that's not in the place of a teacher practicing and taking the time to learn themselves. So I guess those are some things that I would suggest for somebody who's just beginning to integrate technology in their classroom.
And I would say something very, very similar in case of, sometimes you get a brand new toy and you want to use it and play with it and make it all part of everything. And you see how great it is, how fantastic it is. But keep in mind that this is a resource. It is a tool, as Sue just said. And it's, it doesn't take away from what you're already doing in your classroom. Its intention is really to enhance what you do in your classroom and to bring you into, all of this great new material that the students are going to experience in a different form. And I think it's, I just want to be cautious in sort of saying, you get this new toy and you want to use it all as it is. Ease yourself into it, get used to it, and as Sue said, practice it and be comfortable with it, because just like you don't want to be sort of searching around for that CD or finding that track and taking up that time, because you know what those students are going to do whenever there's any sort of little bit of downtime. So familiarize yourself with it, the navigation of it, and that all comes with time, that all comes with practice. So there's my 2 cents on integrating technology as a beginner.
I think that's great. So the next question we have is, how do you think technology is making music education more impactful? Michael, do you want to address this one?
Sure. I think, basically what we've been saying this whole time, access to content anytime, anywhere, on any device is really important. I think that access to authentic materials and those different performances that really are supported by accurate information and engaging instruction. I think the ability to really make it your own. It shows that sound instruction really is at your fingertips, as you've listed there. Teachers can create their own lesson plans, and they can select from a range of different pieces and activities to deliver that instruction. So, like, for example, a class likes listening, so here's one that likes singing, and there's more than one way to teach those different skills. Obviously, as the time saving that I talked about prior to, you don't need to hand out or collect books, and you're always certain that they're looking at the same page, so to speak, and following the same instruction. because of that focal point of, the smartboard or whatever delivery that you're providing. And it's much easier to provide that sort of rich integrated experience. As Sue said before, the art and the music and the instructional information background, everything is right there, right at your fingertips. And in terms of differentiated learning, those tasks there are really tailored to the ability and the interest level of your students, so they can practice their parts for performance. They can compose on their own. They can be assigned individually to students. So if you've got a student that's maybe having difficulty understanding a specific concept or not really reaching the skill, you can push out an activity that will reinforce those different concepts or skills that you're wanting them to acquire. And it really can be differentiated to not only their ability, but their interest level there. And then I think the assessment piece is really, really fantastic. In our world of music education, we have both really subjective and objective assessment that we need to do. And with some of this constructed response assessment that we've provided, you can get instant feedback as to whether or not that student understands, or if you're delivering that information in a way that they understand what's going on, with those audio recordings, with software that provides, ability for the students to answer questions and, click on their answer, and then that information is sent back to the teacher, and they get that instant feedback. So I think that really all of those pieces are a key element in making music education more impactful as this resource tool is made available to both you, the teacher, and your students.
Right.
I would even add one more thing here, and that is that all of the things that Michael just said are things that make music education more impactful for the student and for the teacher. But there's also another way that I think technology is making music education more impactful, and that's advocacy. Because music, whoever is doing music education knows that sometimes music educators are considered second-class citizens, even though we are the public relations for the district most often.
Right.
And the technology is going to make music education, music so much more powerful when you're trying to explain what to an administrator what something's about, when you're trying to parents what something's about, to be able to use this technology. It makes it, for want of a better word, and I think that that's going to be an advantage.
Awesome. Sue, I thought it was so helpful before when you defined active music making, before we talked about integrating technology into the classroom. Do you want to go ahead and define blended learning and what that means to you?
Sure. So blended learning is a combination of what the teacher does in the classroom and what technology does in and out of the classroom. We have another term that's become really popular through the Khan Academy, and now it's become part of our educational jargon, that's called the flipped classroom. And for the most part, flipped classroom is the same. So that may be true in school districts. Some school districts are going to start to define these things in other ways, so please forgive me if I'm not describing it exactly the way that your district is describing it. But in a flipped classroom or in a blended learning, often it flips the way instruction is delivered. Traditionally, in our music classrooms, we had the children experience something and explore it, and then we labeled it, and hopefully they had some time to practice it, and even more hopefully they had time to create with it or apply it to some new learning, and that's sort of the learning sequence. Because music teachers have so little time with students compared to the amount of curriculum that we'd like to deliver, this idea of being able to send kids home either before the instruction in the classroom or after the instruction in the classroom. So we know we want to teach a concept or skill, we know what materials we want to use, and we know that the children need to have time to practice. Either we can send them home and have them learn something first, practice a part, or learn a song, or listen to a listening selection, do some sort of activity with it, and then come back to the classroom, and the instruction in the class is based on what the students have already done at home, so they've already done some pre-work for it. Or we can describe something and teach something in the classroom, have the students go home and then practice their parts, or compose something that is an example of whatever that concept or skill is. So the flipped classroom, the blended classroom, is it just allows kids to have more time to get really, really engaged with whatever the musical concept or skill is, so that they can learn it well and deeply.
Thank you. That was really helpful. So the question here, the first question rather, what is the greatest benefit to students for being able to access materials outside of the classroom?
I think that, for the first time, you've got that opportunity to shape a student's learning outside of the classroom, as you've just listed there. You can send the student content home with them, and students can access all of the lessons and the songs and practice their parts and create recordings and send them back to their teacher, or teachers can push out content and information for assignments, etc., for their students via the digital platform. And then, unlike ever before, they have access to this entire curriculum. As we stated before, never were you able to send your kids home with that music textbook. Unlike other classrooms or other classroom settings, they always went home with their math book. They always went home with their reading stuff, their science, their social studies. And, when they get home, typically their parents are going to say, what did you do in school today? Or what did you learn in math? Or what did you, to have a discussion, to have that sort of family engagement. And now the kid can say, not just say, oh, we learned this song in music, we played a game in music. They can actually show them. They can actually play that song or sing that song or do that dance or play that virtual instrument, what they learned in the classroom. And by doing that, they're not only sharing their experience, they're also practicing what they learned in the classroom, in music class. So I think it's just I think it's just absolutely amazing. I mean, how many times you wanted kids to be able to explore and to create and do all of those great things outside of the classroom. You never really knew if they were doing that. I always joke and say, I was a trumpeter in 4th grade, and of course I always took my trumpet home with me with the great intention of practicing, but that didn't always happen, because I had to get out that trumpet, I had to put that music on the stand, I had to go through and practice, and sometimes it happened, sometimes it didn't. And of course, when I came back into the lesson that I was going to, I was asked, did you practice? And of course my response was, yes, I did. But then they'd listen to me, and you'd know that maybe I didn't practice enough. So what's great about this is that the teacher can actually see if the students logged on or if they've practiced, because they have to respond back to that. So I just think it's a really fantastic way, not only to make sure that students are practicing or looking at the content, but having fun with it and enjoying the robust and rich environment that this provides.
Michael, you just fessed up. Uh-oh, you're in trouble now.
I know, but it's nothing new. Everybody knows
that. When we talked about this question, what's the greatest benefit to students, it's really hard to identify one greatest benefit, except what Michael said, that it puts learning in the hands and minds of the student. But I also would add, in an engaging way. But there are several things that I think, and rather than say that there's one greatest benefit. One benefit is choice. I think that because students will have the book there and be able to take it home, for those students who are curious, for those students who want to go beyond just what happens in the classroom, what happens in the classroom will just be a jumping point for them to go outside of the classroom experience and find other related things. I think we're going to find lots of students coming back and saying, look what I found in here. This is awesome. And so there's going to be much more connecting to students' lives. The breadth of materials and experiences that will be available to students is just extraordinary. And as long as we make sure, and we have made sure, that it's high quality materials, then I think we're putting richness in the hands of children. A really great benefit, and I said it before, but I'll say it again, is that the kids will have the opportunity to practice as many times as they need. So some kids just get started, and then music class is over, and they haven't embraced it, they haven't grasped it, they just haven't had enough time to practice, and they really want to. So it will give them the opportunity to improve and become better musicians. And then I think the composition opportunities are really extraordinary here. So that's so hard to find time in a music class to really allow students to compose, and now they will have those opportunities. So I think all of those, choice, breadth, practice, and composition opportunities, are all really, really great benefits.
So I think it's safe to say you both wish you could have sent your kids home with their student editions in the past.
Oh, yeah. You can never reach all the students in your classrooms every day. If you think about music education, music educators see how many kids every week. This is a chance for the kids to continue to have positive musical experiences and growth, and also to draw their family into music. It's just a huge plus all the way around.
I agree 100%.
So we're already at our final point, so let's take a few minutes to talk about managing the digital environment. So the question is, what hardware are you seeing in classrooms today that you were not seeing 5 years ago?
Michael, you want to start that?
Sure. You know, I think technology moves so quickly. I think that, you know, the minute it's kind of like, you know, you get something, you get the new, best, greatest device or piece of technology, and, you know, next week it's already outdated, or, you know, there's an update to a piece of software, or whatever the case may be. I think part of the beauty of this particular program is that ability for it to grow and improve as technology advances. I think you can sort of move away from hardware requirements, because, you know, this platform has all of those digital assets embedded right there, like those virtual instruments and the interactive listening maps and all of those things.
Right.
So,
I was going to say that wireless is one of the really big things that is very different in the past 5 years.
absolutely.
And of course, broadband, and it's getting better all the time. So I still work in some schools where they have some connectivity issues, but even within the past 2 years, that's changing so quickly. It's changing fast.
Very rapid. Yeah.
The smart boards too are something, and screens that can be projected onto are really becoming part of every school now. I'm seeing it nearly everywhere. So
Absolutely.
I don't know what you're seeing, Mike.
I'm seeing the same thing. I'm even seeing where there's sort of a one-to-one setting of kids coming in with an iPad where all of their content is accessed digitally on that iPad or on a Chromebook or on a, you know, MacBook Air or whatever the case may be. So it's starting to move in that direction, and I think eventually it will get there. And I think that outfit of all of those different devices, even if it's kids, I've been in some settings where they actually have a bring your own device, where kids are using devices that they have from home, and that they're accessing content on their own devices as sort of a requirement for that BYOD, or bring your own device. So
it's interesting. I was working on a media grant for the U.S. Department of Education, and we had an evaluator who did some research on the availability of digital platforms, and one of the really interesting findings was that even for kids who live in poverty, even for kids who may be homeless, the one device that everybody has is a cell phone.
Exactly.
And connectivity. So yeah, this bring your own device sort of thing actually is working fairly well, and the kids have the devices anyway in school, so it's one way to use them effectively.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So the next question in this section is, do you think technology helps teachers manage more material or just manage differently?
Yeah, well, it's sort of it's always going to boil down to being based on that teacher's comfort level with both the technology and utilization of that and of the curriculum. I think that fear that we were talking about before, once they get into it, once they start using it, once they start practicing, as I said before, they'll say, how could I ever live without this? Similar to, when CDs replaced cassettes slash I call them the big black CDs, or that's what the kids call them, vinyl, right? So we were afraid of what's going to happen, or how we're going to be able to manage all of these different things, or am I going to have the digital resources to play that CD? Or now, we saw that then move on to MP3s, and now we're seeing that trend moving away from MP3s and moving to, direct audio streaming and video streaming. So it is that teacher's comfort level, but I do believe, and I see it in motion in many classrooms, that comfort level of technology is growing, and the availability of devices and access to the internet is really across the country.
So I think it's so early in technology implementation, even though we're talking, everybody is being required to have technology, being required to have digital product. Things are changing really rapidly, and I think we're going to see a range of teacher uses, and each teacher will make it their own in their own way. And what's amazing to me is that no matter what I plan as an author, anytime now, this is I've written a textbook series or two, and the teachers always come up with so many different ways to use what we create than what we can possibly imagine. They are so imaginative, and then if you put the students in there, they can imagine even more.
Right.
The interactive nature of this program really helps the teachers find more applicable and varied materials for concepts and skills. So I think one thing that's going to happen is the teacher's going to be able to find and have access to things that they wouldn't perhaps have even found in the print materials, because there will be so many ways to search for exactly what they're looking for. And I just think that teachers are still going to use materials and activities according to their own personal preference. So, we have teachers who are really passionate about reading. They're going to find the reading materials. They're going to use the materials and activities in a reading kind of way. We have others who are not so interested in the reading. They want kids to read, but they really want them to move. They want them to sing. They want them to perform. They want them to do other kinds of things. They will find those things within this. And no teacher can teach any more than he or she has time to teach. So there's tons in here, and you have a limited amount of time.
And I always say that that teacher, or you, the music educator, are the expert. You are the one who knows not only your comfort level of teaching or your specialized area of teaching, whether it be an Orff approach, a Kodai approach, a Delcros, a Gordon, a mixture of all of those. But you're the expert. You know not just your own comfort level, but you know your students, and you know how they learn that content, and what lessons and how you present those lessons will be successful in your teaching, and thus their learning of that content.
Right.
So it's a teaching style and the students' learning styles. And the combination of those, it's going to determine how a teacher uses this technology. And teachers are going to get more comfortable over time. Yeah, it's
Right.
a new program for everyone. And so I know when I was teaching the first year with something, it was every day was a new adventure. Every day was exciting. Everything was brand new, and that is incredibly exciting. It's very stimulating, and it's also scary.
Right.
So the first year is like that, and then the next year you are more comfortable with things, and you find more. You find more every year. So, yeah.
Right. So to be a little more explicit, though, how can technology assist you to plan and deliver materials then in a more efficient might not be the right word, but in a better way?
Mm-hmm. So it's different depending on what the purpose is. So some things that technology can do. It can help the teacher search for materials and activities to teach a specific concept or skill, or a combination of those. It helps the teacher organize the materials and activities. So there's planning that's available within this, so they can construct their own lesson plans by taking pieces and putting them together. It's immediately accessible at point of use. It's right there, literally at your fingertips, so that as you're working with students in the classroom, you need something, you can touch it, and it is there. It makes the learning incredibly engaging. It's visual. Things are visually so rich, they're orally so rich, they're kinesthetically so rich that it's going to make the learning really engaging. It gives the teacher alternatives for different kinds of learners right on the spot. And it gives extended learning options. So I can send somebody home with homework, and it's right there, right at the point of use. So I think all of those things will help teachers to plan and deliver their materials.
Awesome.
I just want to add one more thing. I think that ability not only to do all of that teacher planning for that specific grade level, the lessons are developed in such a way, and the delivery of those lessons is developed in such a way that the content really can be organized across lessons. So let's say you've got that fourth grade lesson that you think is going to work fantastically in third grade, or move it up to fifth grade, whatever the case may be. That cross grade level planning is really fantastic in terms of organizing and accessing that content right at your fingertips. So it really emphasizes the importance of the delivery of those different concepts and skills.
Right.
Yeah, and I would even say one more little thing is that if you find a lesson and it's really rich, and you have your class time is shortened, you have a fire drill, you have something like that, you can actually take the second part of the lesson, move it into the next lesson, so that you don't lose that continuity. There's just lots of flexibility here.
Right.
Or those poor Monday students that I always say, they always get a Monday off. So that Monday section of classes of music, you don't see some for 2 or 3 weeks if you have or the Friday kids that, they always get kind of gypped sometimes with vacations. So that's that ability to just move everything over to the next class meeting time is just so fantastic.
Right. So we got a question from a listener about how students are going to be able to create compositions, and I hope the listener forgives me, but I'm going to rephrase just a little bit. What are the ways that you think asking students to compose can change now? Like, what are how are there more options for you now with technology than there had been in the past? Because the program, the Spotlight on Music as delivered through Music Studio gives you a great deal of tools. So how are those going to influence the way you use composition in your classroom?
Okay, so before using technology, and my background and my expertise is in the lower grades, so forgive me for addressing it from that perspective. To compose, you either had to have little cards that you had notation on and the kids move them around, or they had to write their own. And for young children to write it's time consuming, it's tedious, And now you can just have those elements on the smartboard. They can move them around. They can listen to what they've created. They can perform what they've created. They can reconfigure it and do it again. They can copy it and repeat it, so that it's a much more flexible environment. You also can, we talk about composition, and improvisation is different than composition, but I don't want to forget that we want kids to freely improvise as well. We don't only want them to be able to read the language of music, we want them to be able to speak the language of music, and that means fluidly improvising using elements. So you can put rhythms up on the smartboard, and they can use those to improvise as well. So that's one way to do composition. Michael, do you have other ideas?
Well, I just think it's important to say that this is not a replacement for physically writing something out, because that's a skill that our students need to learn, that calligraphy. Just like we don't want them just writing on it or typing into a computer, we want to be able to see that they're understanding and being able to, draw that quarter note or whatnot. But the ability then to take it into a digital form and be able to manipulate it and move it into a composition and then apply it in an improvisatory way or in a performance-based way really, generates so many different stimuli that you weren't able to do in the past, because maybe you had four beats in a measure and you only wrote 3 beats in a measure. Well, a compositional piece of software or application is able to say you're missing a beat here, so it reinforces that ability to sort of take what you're learning as you learn it and apply it. So
there's a little bit of self-assessment there.
Absolutely. So I think that's a cool thing to think about in terms of composition.
So, Sue, one thing that I was curious about that I want to touch on before we run out of time, I know that you spoke a little bit about the Total Learning digital platform that you've worked on, and it's not a McGraw-Hill program, but I'm wondering, what are some of the things that you've learned from implementing that program with music teachers and music classrooms?
So Total Learning it's a professional development program. It's really robust, it's arts-based, and it is designed first and foremost for classroom teachers. But music teachers are using it, and as they've used it, several fascinating things have happened. First of all, they love it, and it really supports their curriculum. It's helped them to think more broadly about their curriculum. But Total Learning Digital has a curriculum, lesson plans built in, and something called studios. The studios are like centers where kids can practice the concepts and the strategies that they've learned, the arts-based strategies they've learned. And we were working with teachers in Michigan, a whole district's worth of music teachers. And at first they were really skeptical and said, no, I don't think that we can do this. We don't have time. We don't have enough time with our kids. And then when they tried it and let go of control a little bit and really designed those studios so that the kids took responsibility for their own learning but had specific tasks to do, the teachers just really fell in love with it. So one of the things that I think happens when you're in a digital environment is that you can provide students with tasks that they can do where they become independent learners. You can differentiate for different skill levels of kids, for different interests of kids, and it's become a very, very rich part of those teachers' the way that they teach children now. So that's one of the things that has happened as a result of working with music teachers with Total Learning Digital. Yeah.
Interesting.
Very cool. And I've seen it in action, and it is just so impressive how the kids take control of their own environment and really it's just, I don't know how to explain it. You sort of have to see it in action to understand it, and that was a great description that Sue just gave. But all of those directives that you're typically giving to do a specific activity, they already know the process. They know what to do. They know where to go to get something. They know when to shift to another studio or another play area or whatever the case. It's just it really makes the job much easier for the student, and I think, or for the teacher, and I think that the student really benefits from it because it's much more efficient. It's
And
structured.
Yeah.
yeah, and they're much more engaged. So what a music teacher does is, if you have a piece of music and you want the kids to be able to sing it, you want them to be able to play the alto xylophone part, you want them to be able to play the bass xylophone part, and you want them to be able to move with scarves with it. So you've got 4 different things. You can set up 4 studios. They have the directions right on them, and you have to prepare the kids. You have to teach them how to go to a studio, work together efficiently, clean up at the end, all of those things. But the kids then can rotate in the amount of time that you have a class for 30 or 40 minutes. The kids can move every 10 minutes. They can be moving to another studio, and by the time that they've finished 40 minutes in that classroom, they've practiced all of the parts. So then the next time they come in, everybody's ready to do every part. It's really very rich.
Right, very cool. And I'm hearing lots of opportunities to use music studio products in a very similar way.
Exactly, exactly. So it's not for nothing that these 2 things were created by the same person. I didn't create Music Studio all by myself, but certainly the philosophy is connected, and certainly
Right.
really, really philosophically, it has the same student-centered approach. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it also speaks to, while music educators may have, like you said, Sue, some hesitancy there to adopt a new way of doing things, quote unquote, all of the people that we're teaching, or that teachers are teaching these days, are digital natives, and it's something that we're not going to be able to run away from or change about them. So it's almost smarter to play to their strengths, because ultimately they have a huge part to do with what the energy in your classroom is, and that sort of thing.
Absolutely. We don't want to run away from it. We want to embrace it, because
Right.
it just there's so much opportunity, and it is the reality of today. It is where everybody lives today. And it's so rich. Why would you do anything but embrace it?
Right. So we're almost at time. Do either of you have any closing thoughts?
I have just one thing. The question that's up there is, are your teachers ready for the new digital environment of Music Studio? And we sort of touched on that throughout our presentation, but I would just like a sort of an ending comment in terms of my favorite author, Mark Twain, always said, don't be afeared. You may not be ready right now. You may not be set up with all of the devices, all of the technology, or maybe your internet's slow. It's moving in that direction. Technology is coming quickly and rapidly. So let's be forward thinking here. Let's look at where technology is going, where
Mm-hmm.
where you were 5 years ago, as we just said, and where you're going to now be 2 years from now. Will your curriculum, will you and your teachers and your students, will they be ready for this 2 years from now? I think that once everything comes into this technological flow, and your school gets there, that you and your curriculum and all of your teachers will be set up. They'll be all ready to go. So when that does hit, they're going to be ready to move forward, and they're going to have a wonderful way of delivering content and information via Music Studio, via the programs within the platform. So, I just think that's an important thing to take out of this discussion. And there we have it. Sue, anything?
Yeah.
And we're all here to help. I think we've really, really worked at trying to think about how to make this the richest, most wonderful experience for your students. And as far as I'm concerned, it's all about the kids. So if the kids are succeeding and they're loving it and they're learning from music, then I'm good.
Agreed.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Sue and Michael, for joining me, and And I say for the beginning of discussion because I think this really is just the beginning of this sort of discussion that the authors and teachers across the United States are going to start having and continue to have. I think this was really productive and a lot of great things were brought up, and I'm looking forward to the next webinar.